Everyone who happens to be listening. I am Abby, I'm a dairy farmer, and I'm speaking to you from Cardiff, which is in South Wales. And what I've just put up on the screen here is a picture of my dairy farm. So I'm sure that you lot are probably all sat in a classroom at the minute, and there may not be much of a view out of your window, but this is what I see every morning. This is my office. Hopefully it's a nice sunny day and you can see the clouds in the sky, but it's a really warm day. You can see all the grass and the trees, and this is where I live and this is where I work. So if we move on a little bit, so when we're talking about dairy farming, what I'm talking about is this. So you can see this photo in front of you now. This is what we call a milking parlor. So I keep cows on my farm, lots of cows. Actually, if you were going to take a wild guess, I could ask you very quickly, try and think of a number of how many cows I might keep. And the answer is I actually keep 200 adult cows on my farm and about 200 little cows as well. So we keep them and we get milk out of them. So what I need to use is what we call a milking parlor. So this is where the cows are gathered. So if you look right to the back of that picture there, you'll see a little group of cows gathered at the back, and we call that a collecting yard. So twice a day, I will bring my cows into this collecting yard, and then they will walk into this milking parlor. And you can see I've got some stood on the one side and some stood on the other there. And this is how we milk them. So if we move on, this is my view. So I am stood right in the middle of that milking parlor, and I'm in a recess, which we call a pit. And those cows are at eye level with me. So you can see, I can see their udders. They would be at my eye level, and they're facing me. So the cows will walk into the milking parlor and they generally come in and they'll have a little bit of food in front of them. So that's quite important to make sure they get all the vitamins and minerals that they need. And whilst they're eating, I will milk them. So what I do, I will use a what we call a milking cluster. So can you see there in the photo that cows have got 4 teats? You can see it on this cow here. So here's a view of her udder from the side. And I can put what we call a milking cluster onto them. So it's got 4 cups, 1 for each teat, and it will go onto the teats. Now there's a little bit of a vacuum on there. That's not there to suck the milk out of the cow. What it does is it massages very gently. It'll massage those teats just very slowly. And then the little bit of vacuum that's there will just help to draw the milk away. We'll take that straight out of the milking parlor and we put it into a very large milk tank, which is like a giant refrigerator. And that is where we will keep the milk. So this cow here that you happen to see, this black and white one who's wearing that very posh sash, that's a pet cow, Nell. So we've said that we've taken the milk from the cows. It's going to be quite warm when it comes out the cows. So if you think that we're what we call warm-blooded creatures, so the milk that's going to be coming from a cow is quite warm, but we need to get it chilled really quickly. And that's really important to make sure that we maintain the quality of the milk. So I'm sure that those of you who keep milk in your household, can you think where you normally keep it? Yeah, you keep it in a fridge, don't you? And this in the top photo here, in this big silver tank, this is a giant refrigerator, and that's where we'll keep the milk and keep it nice and cool. So then if we look in the bottom photo, this is a milk lorry. So this is really important because once our cows have produced all this milk, we need to make sure that we can get it into the shops for you all to make sure that you can buy it and put it in your own fridges. So we use milk lorries. So there will be lots of lorry drivers out on the road who will be driving around in these great big tankers who will come every day and they will collect our milk. And they take that milk away to a factory and they'll do a couple of things there. So one of them that they'll do is they will pasteurize it. So that'll just be to make sure that it's all nice and clean. Because remember, it's come from a farm, so we need to make sure that if there are any bugs there, we can completely obliterate them. And then it's going to put it in a bottle, and it'll put it in a bottle for all of you, and make sure it'll end up in your fridges. The other thing that it might do is we know that we can use some of that milk also to go into the likes of butter, cheese, yogurt, ice cream. I'm sure you can think of all sorts of foods where you would like to put different dairy products in. So if we move on a little bit, so what I wanted to show you here is what we call the red tractor logo. Now this is really important, and you can see it's a nice red tractor there, isn't it? And it's above a blue tick. So this is a logo that farms like mine use every single day. And what it means is it guarantees that milk that comes from farms like mine is reared, is always taken from cows that are looked after very carefully. We always take their happiness and their well-being very seriously. It makes sure that our milk is nice and healthy and it's good and safe for you. And it makes sure that we're looking after any environmental things that we can do on our farm. And it makes sure that we uphold all of those standards. So what I would suggest that you do is next time you go into a supermarket, have a look at all the different dairy products, but it's not just on dairy products. It's also on vegetables, some salads, a few fruits and some meat, and see if you can spot that logo in as many different places as you can. And as a dairy farmer, I'm really proud to see that logo on any food products that might come from farms like mine. So let's talk a little bit about the farm, because that's the exciting bit, isn't it? Well, the main thing about farms, you've seen the view from my office. You've seen that I work in green fields with lots of trees around me and under blue skies. But farms are always quite family farms. So in this photo here, you can see my mum. And I'm actually what we call a third generation farmer. So that means that my mum is also a farmer, but also her mother was a farmer as well. And likewise on my father's side, he's a farmer and his father was a farmer as well. So farms are real family affairs. And you can see mum there with one of our baby calves looking after it. That one had actually escaped. So we found it trying to find some more milk. So she was trying to put it back. Likewise, although it's a family farm, we have lots of what we would call extended family on our farm. So this is Ross. Ross has been working with us for probably 18 years now, and he is like part of the family. And here he is with one of my pet cows. So this is Elizabeth, the cow, and they were celebrating Christmas. So they decided to don a Christmas hat and go for a little walk. You can see that Ross has put a little head collar on Elizabeth, and they were going to go and have a bit of a walk around. But it's just all about enjoying being or working around animals, and it's about enjoying the people that you work with as well. So Ross is a stockman, so he looks after the cows, but here is another guy who works on our farm, and this is Richard. And Richard is a tractor driver. So his job is to make sure that he keeps the grass growing for us. He does all sorts of different jobs as well, like he might work a lot with cow muck and a bit of cow dung. And he makes sure that we use that as fertilizer. So he will take that back out and put it onto our crops to encourage them to grow. We've got another team member here then. This is Steve. So Steve has been with us for nearly 40 years now. And here he is, a little calf had fallen into a hedge. And here he is just trying to help him out. But Steve can do both jobs. Steve works with livestock and he works with tractors. So that makes him a very versatile, very useful person to have about on the farm. And here is my final most useful person to have on the farm. This is Gwen, my sheepdog. So Gwen is extremely important for making sure that things run smoothly. And that's probably one of the nicest things about working on a farm. It's being able to take your dog to work. There's not many professions that can say they can do that. So try and introduce you to some of the other characters that we've got on the farm. We do keep bulls. So these are bulls, and you can see particularly the one on the left, the whiter bull. This is Frank. You can see that he's got a ring in his nose. So not all bulls have to keep rings in their noses, but lots of them do. So this is Frank on the left-hand side. He's very important. But then we also have Bruno to the right-hand side as well. He's a slightly older bull than Frank. That's why he doesn't have a ring in his nose in the same way. So I put this up here just to remind you that whilst we can have lots of lovely, sweet little calves on the farm, and there are lots of cows like Elizabeth who are very friendly, sometimes there can be animals like Frank and Bruno who don't necessarily mean us any harm, but can sometimes get a little bit carried away and a bit excited if they see us in a field where they don't normally expect us to be. So it's just a reminder to everybody that if you're walking in the countryside and you see some big cows, just be very careful where you go. Make sure you look out for any signs that might tell you that there's a bull in the field, and just try and be very careful. And just remember that these animals, will only respond to us if we do things that frighten them. So don't do anything to frighten these animals. Don't do anything to attract their attention. Just carry on walking nice and quietly, and just make sure that you respect their space, because it's their field. And they'll only be in fields where members of the public or youngsters like yourselves aren't allowed to walk. So just be very careful and just keep an eye out, because that's quite important. So we've got cows like Elizabeth, we've got bulls like Frank and Bruno, but we've also got lots of calves. So here we've got two different types of calves, and perhaps I should go into here. Lots of dairy cows are typically black and white. They're the main sort of dairy cow that you'll see out in the field. But there are other different colored cows, and I've got a little brown dairy cow here as well. You can see in the image of the little black and white calf that it's got two yellow, well, you might call them earrings. I call them ear tags, which are attached in their ears. And they're two matching. You can see the numbers match on both sides. So every calf that's born on the farm, within the first few days of life, we give them these ear tags just so that we can identify them. It's a bit like when you were born in hospital and you would have, or perhaps you've got a brother and sister, and they would have had a little identity bracelet, which would have gone on their wrist, just so that we can make sure and keep track of everybody. So on these ear tags, and you might just be able to read it there on the screen, you can see that it says UK at the top. That means that this calf is from the country UK, it's from Britain. And then there's a very small number next to UK, and that is my unique farm number. So if this calf ever went missing, and you looked up that ear tag and you said, right, well, it's definitely from the UK, and then you looked at the little number above the top, you'd be able to narrow it down to my farm. And then if we take the larger number at the bottom, which is the 2244, that is number 2244 calf who has been born on my farm. And from that identity, I will be able to tell you who its mother is, how many sisters it's got, how many brothers it's got, who its father is, and all sorts of different details really about the health and welfare of that animal. So it's really useful to be able to have these ear tags in. So the little calf on the left has only just been born, so that one was just about to have his ear tags put in. So if we talk a little bit about my day. So if you are a dairy farmer, then you will work some quite strange hours. So I do literally work from sunrise to sunset. So my morning will start at about 4:30 when my alarm goes off, and I will get up, and the first thing that I will do in that day is milk the cows. So if it's summertime, I'll go out to the fields like I am on the left-hand side here, and I will gather the cows in from the fields. And if it's wintertime, then I will be bringing them in from a shed, because it will be too wet for those cows to go out in the field. Then during the day, once I finish milking, I might do all sorts of different things, but I might be feeding calves. I might be driving tractors, because although we have Richard, he can't do all of the work himself. So I will pitch in and do lots of different things. Then in the afternoon, I will milk the cows again. So most cows on most farms are milked twice a day, in the morning and in the night. And quite often, before we finish for the day, we will have seen both the sunrise and the sunset. And you can see how beautiful it is to be able to sit there and really appreciate that view, and appreciate being around such wonderful animals like cows. So in terms of farm jobs, why would you want to be a farmer? I wanted to be a farmer, and this is me here, because I get to work with animals. You know, I don't just get to take my dog Gwen to school, to work with me for the day. I get to work with lots of little calves. This one here hadn't been able to drink when it was born, so here I am offering it a bottle of milk. And there you can see the mother just over my shoulder, watching that I know what I'm doing. That's really rewarding. There are other reasons why you might want to work on a farm. Some jobs are with tractors, but some can be quite manual. So here I am using what we would call a dung fork, and I am manually moving hay, but it's really rewarding to do some hard jobs that encourage you to use all your muscles and to get lots of exercise. And you have to be really strong to be a farmer. You can't do jobs like this in the photo if you haven't got much strength and you haven't got much stamina. So it's not for the faint-hearted. So then obviously what lots of people are interested in when you work on a farm is working with machines. Now, I'm sure that you've all seen tractors on a farm, but this contraption here, which you perhaps can't see all that well, but it's what I would call a skid steer. And you can see by my hands, I've got joysticks. So one is for moving the machine left and right and backwards and forwards. And the other joystick is for moving a big boom with a bucket on the front, and that will move the boom up and down. And I can pick up all sorts of things with that. So I can pick up pallets, bags of feed, anything really. It's a really tough machine. And you can see there that Gwen is with me as well, making sure that I know what I'm doing. And then obviously we've got the tractors, and I'm sure that lots of you have seen tractors out and about on the road. They come in all sorts of different colors, and it is very competitive in the farming world as to which color tractor you might have. So ours happen to be blue, and that is a particular make. But you can also get green, red, there are some black, some yellow. So if you're out and about on the road and you're looking into fields, see if you can spot as many different color tractors as you can. You can also get some quite unique ones. There are a few pink ones around. And a couple of silver and gold ones. So make sure you keep an eye out for those. And then one of the other jobs that I might have on the farm would be driving this quad bike, or an ATV as we might call it, which I'm sure everybody would love to have a go at. This is really useful for getting around the farm very quickly. And what's really important about it is it won't do much damage on the ground. So if you think of the size of the wheels on a tractor versus the size of the wheels on a quad bike, you can see that it's not going to press the grass so much. So it's about minimizing the damage that you might do if you're traveling over grassland or over a crop. So we've got lots of variety there. So I'm just going to finish off by introducing you to one of my favorite cows. This is Daisy the cow. So Daisy the cow is currently 10 years old. She has already had 8 calves in her lifetime, and hopefully she will go on to have many more. Every year, she will produce about 20,000 pints every single year for you all to buy in and to drink and have in your homes. Daisy just wants to remind you that when you are in a shop and you are buying milk, or you're buying butter, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, cream, whatever it may be, please look for that red tractor logo, because that's really important to people like Daisy and me. It's important that you have faith in what you buy and that you enjoy eating and drinking dairy. So I want to thank you all very much for listening. And if you've got any questions, then please do let me know. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to move on to some questions for Abby. So these are some questions that have been sent in by teachers, and also some questions from pupils as well. So if you're ready, Abby,
I am.
The first one, does what you do change depending on the different seasons?
Yes, and that is an excellent question. It absolutely does. So you've probably already heard me say that the cows will graze outside in the summertime. So that will mainly be spring and summer, but actually in some of the autumn and certainly a lot of the winter, my cows will be inside. They'll be in a big barn. And that's for a number of reasons. One, because it can be quite cold. And that means the grass doesn't grow very quickly. So they would run out of food. But also because the ground is so wet, they would just be in mud all the time. So yes, those jobs will change a lot. And we spend all of the summer preparing for the winter. So we harvest lots of food and make sure that our sheds are ready.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Next one. How much milk does one cow produce in a year? I think you've already mentioned about Daisy, haven't you? But is that sort of on average each year?
Yes, so that would be the easiest maybe is to think about how much milk does a cow produce in a day. And as a dairy farmer, I will always talk in litres. So she might produce about 25 litres a day. But if you wanted to convert that into pints, the easiest way, although your teacher's probably got a better way, but the easiest way is just to double it. So if we're talking about 25 litres, we probably mean 50 pints. So 50 pints of milk.
Gosh, that's quite a lot. Okay, next one. How long does one dairy cow stay with you?
So a cow like Daisy is 10 years old. and hopefully she will be with me for quite a few years after that. My oldest cow in the herd at the minute is Marjorie, and she is 17. So not all of them will stay with me that long. It very much depends depends on what they're doing, but they can be with me for a good 17, 18, 19 years.
Great. Okay, next question. Is traceability important on a dairy farm?
It's extremely important. So we've all seen the red tractor logo, and it's really important to me that if you're buying a product that I produce, then you trust it. And the only way I can make sure you trust it is by making sure that I'm doing everything absolutely right. So I'm making sure that I'm looking after cows like Daisy. I know that she was born on my farm. I know that she's been kept healthy. I know that she's having a really good diet that's going to meet all of her needs and give her all the vitamins and minerals. And I know that we're looking after the grass that she's eating. So it's really important that we, as farmers, make sure that we uphold that standard.
Great, that's good to know. Next couple of questions are about you. So what inspired you to go into farming, first of all?
I always had my parents to look up to because they were both farming, and my grandparents. But also I wanted a job that wouldn't confine me to an office. I really did want to take my dog to work. And I found out that there are universities out there for farming. So I have got a degree in agriculture. And I think it's a really exciting industry to be in. And there are so many different jobs you can do in agriculture. So you could be like me, looking after dairy cows, or you could be like Richard, who does a lot of tractor driving. We have vets. We have something called a crop doctor. So they look after crops as opposed to animals. Cooking is a very, very important part of agriculture, as is dealing with the seasons. So somebody asked about the different jobs in the seasons. That's really important. And looking after the environment is very much a huge part of farming. So there's all sorts of different jobs that you can have.
Great. And obviously you're really enthusiastic about what you do, but what do you most love about farming?
My favorite, I hate mornings. I struggle to wake up in the morning at 4:30, and I have 3 alarms that go off. But once I walk out the door and I put my wellies on, and I've got Gwen skipping along beside me, and I can see the sun rising, and I can hear the cows in the field getting ready to come and greet me, that is without doubt the best thing about what I do.
Great. So you've talked about the kind of things that you do on a day in your farm. So one of the questions is, what's a typical day? But actually, one of the things I'd quite like to know about as well is that obviously you've talked about all of the jobs on the farm and milking the cows, but there must be a huge amount of things to do in the background, paperwork and things like that. Do you spend a lot of time doing that too?
Yes, yes, we can spend quite a lot of time doing paperwork. What has been really good in the last few years is agriculture uses lots of phone apps these days. So a lot of paperwork that I might do will be done off a smartphone using an app, which means that I can record data in real time. So if a baby calf is born, as it's being born, I can make sure that I record that birth and any details about that calf as it starts to grow through life. As the weather changes, I'll be using an app to monitor what's going to happen. Is the rain going to increase? So I need to find a field for shelter for the cows to graze. Is the wind going to increase? So it might alter what we do with our crops. So we use a lot of apps all the time to make sure that we're recording data. So yes, my typical day would be I would milk the cows in the morning. Then probably I will do a lot of work with the youngsters after that. So with the calves, maybe for a couple of hours, making sure that they've got fresh bedding, they've all been fed. I may then go on to a bit of paperwork, or I may go on to a tractor and do a bit of crop work. So lots of different things, and then I will finish the day with milking again.
Great. So you're talking about your apps and using your phone, but that leads in really nicely to another question question we have. So there's a lot at the moment about encouraging pupils to enjoy STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering and maths. So also thinking about perhaps trying encouraging pupils to think about agriculture as a career. Are there any technological developments that have improved the way you farm or milk your herd?
Yes, there's all sorts of different things. Probably one of the newest bits of technology we've got is all of our cows wear what is basically a Fitbit. So every single cow has got a Fitbit on her ankle, and that does a lot of things. But it will measure her footsteps, and it will measure, it will compare them day on day. So if for some reason one day a cow increases her footsteps really significantly, then it will alarm me. So I might receive a message on my phone to say something's not quite right here. This cow has walked a lot further than she did yesterday, and it might be telling me that they've escaped. So that's the funny side of things. But the more serious side of things is it might message me one day and say, well, actually, Daisy the cow hasn't walked very far at all today. You've milked her, but she hasn't done much. And it will alert me very, very quickly that she might not be feeling very well. That means I can speak to my vet very quickly, and I can get to her and make sure that she has any help that she might need. Because usually they pick up stones in their feet when they're grazing outside. So sometimes that can be a bit sore. It's a bit like when you get a splinter. So we'll use that. It will tell me all sorts of other things. It will tell me how much milk she's giving, and it will compare it maybe to her sister or her mother to let me know which cows are working the hardest and might therefore need a little bit of extra food, a little bit of extra vitamins, just to make sure that their bodies are kept in peak condition. And it will just make sure that we're always being very good at what we do.
That's great. And this perhaps leads on actually another question, and you may well have answered it already, but there may be something else that you can think of, was again thinking about STEM. Have there been any developments that have helped you improve the welfare of your herd?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And actually, I have just come off another call with someone else who is going to be putting some electronic sensors into my calf shed to see. So calves, remember, they're very small baby animals, aren't they? So they're quite vulnerable to the cold and to the damp. And if you think about sheds on farms, they are big barns, so they can be quite cold. So what we thought we'd do is put some sensors into the shed. So there will be a main hub sensor, which will be taking all the information. And then there will be the satellite sensors, which will be dotted all around the shed at about the same height as the calf, so that they're feeling the same sort of atmosphere, be dotted all around the shed, and it will map within that shed, where are the draftiest areas, where are the warmest areas. Does that change throughout the day as the sun is shining on the shed, or as it's setting? Just to try and give me a little bit of information. And with that information, then we can make sure that we get ventilation in the right places, or we might be able to use calf jackets. So we'll put jackets on our calves. We might be able to use those more effectively, just to make sure that our calves are kept extra cozy. Because if anybody's cold, they don't feel very well. So it's important we stay on top of that.
Great. That really shows that sort of farming and agriculture is progressive and uses developments and technology in a really good way. Okay, so we've now got some questions from pupils. So what do you feed the cows?
So in the summertime, when the cows are out at grass, they will obviously eat mainly grass. They do, I remember I said that I feed the cows in the milking parlour. So they will have a few sort of what we call supplementary vitamins and minerals. So that will be things like wheat and barley. But it's mainly grass in the summertime. In the winter, they will actually also continue to eat grass, but it won't be fresh grass this time. It will be pretty much pickled grass. So what we do is we'll harvest it in the summertime. We'll mow a field with a giant lawnmower. We'll gather all that grass and we will put it into, well, what we call a bunker, I suppose. And we will make sure that we press it all down and we squash it in and we seal it over with a big sheet. So we lock all of the air out and we effectively pickle that grass. So we preserve it and make sure it doesn't compost. And we can feed that then to the cows in the wintertime. We also grow a few crops on the farm as well, which we can feed to our cows, which would be wheat and barley. and things like that, just to make sure that we balance out anything that the grass might be missing.
Okay, thank you. You've mentioned that you've named a few of your cows. So a pupil says, do you give them names? So you've said a few, but do you name all of your cows?
Right, so every single cow has a name. They don't necessarily always all respond to their names, as I'm sure lots of school children may not either. So Daisy here is a super friendly cow. She enjoys my company and she likes to hang around me. So generally the cows that are like that, and there are quite a few, there's probably 40 or 50 that are like that, I will give them what I will call a pet name, I suppose, so that, you know, if I see them in the day, I can say, hi, Daisy, and spend a bit of time with them. It's very important to me that they trust me. You might just be able to see I've got my hand under her chin there, and you know, she's just quite happy to be stood next to me. So there are lots of cows that enjoy human company, but there are equally plenty who would prefer that you just left them alone and they can carry on about their day.
Okay, thank you. So another couple of questions about you, actually. So do you like to drink milk?
I do. I love to drink milk. In fact, I crave it if I don't, for some reason, have milk in the mornings. I will have to stop later in the day. So yes, I really enjoy, I get the best milk because I get it fresh, straight out of the tank when it's icy cold.
And then the final question we've got here actually is, what is your favourite food that contains milk or cheese?
Ooh, that's a really good question. My favourite food. I think, well, other than ice cream, which clearly everybody loves, well, hopefully everybody loves, cheese is amazing. And I'm from Wales, so we have lots of Welsh cheeses here. But certainly some nice Caerphilly cheese. So Caerphilly is not too far from me. Caerphilly cheese is really nice, and I enjoy that on crackers and also in a sandwich.